Adriene, welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Over there in Houston, Texas.
Yes, yes, it is very hot, humid, um, little bit like I describe Houston, where I'm at, as kind of like the armpit of Texas. So
Uh,
we're very
yes.
near the Gulf, and it's, yeah, just humid and nasty, but great for being in the sun. So I'm a sun
Good,
baby. I love being outside in the sun. So
good for
yeah,
barbecue. Huh?
yes,
I
absolutely.
want to get over there.
And
I
we
work with
have
a, I was just going to say, I work with a big company that's over there, and they're based everywhere, right? But they do these big conferences, and I hope one day they'll do it over there at Texas. So that'll give me a good excuse to get there as well.
we've got some of the best barbecue in the world.
Yeah, I know. Well, cool. Look, thank you for coming on the show. You've got a fairly significant story that we'll delve into parts of, I'm sure, today. But based on your upbringing
Mhm.
and your trauma, you've written a book now. And really, what I found most inspiring was, I think it was in your words potentially that you know you remain unbroken. There's nothing that we can not overcome, regardless of the level of trauma we have. And some people have significant trauma, others have more quiet trauma, but it affects us in many ways. And some people just can't seem to push through. So I'm hoping sharing your story today will help people realize that, hey, I've got this. I can make things change, and I can still live a remarkable life.
Absolutely. I think first it's important that we never compare traumas.
Yeah,
Everybody's trauma is unique and tragic for that individual. And I never compare and I never minimize anyone else's trauma. But yes, my book and my reason for being here is to show that there is light at the end of the tunnel. That even though you're in a, if someone's in a very difficult situation, that is most likely temporary. It doesn't have to be permanent. And you can take steps, just maybe start with baby steps, but you can move forward and you can get out of that situation and overcome it. So that's really quite a bit of the book and
yeah,
and what I hope to accomplish with the book, which is Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines.
yeah.
So
So we've got a link here, guys, in the show notes, so you can check it out there and grab a copy of the book, please, to support Adrian. Unbroken Life Outside the Lines. So I want to start by just delving into your story, if that's okay. And really, I mean, you had years of trauma by the sounds of it. Without going into depth myself, I don't really know your story, but can you tell us a bit about your upbringing and how that all played out?
sure, absolutely. So my book, Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines, covers my life from early childhood to early 20s. And during this time, I was either the witness to or the victim of the sexual assault of a young girl, the drowning death of another child, emotional and physical abuse, extreme poverty, mental illness, homelessness, horrifically abusive foster care, bulimia, drug and alcohol addiction, pedophilia, death, suicide, and even incest. So I
Wow,
have,
it's
yes,
quite a bit of baggage to carry, right? It's
and
it's
it
hard to know where to
it's
go from there, but I mean, so you grew up in the foster care system? Was that the story, or
partly.
yeah?
So my mother was schizophrenic and physically abusive. She wasn't able to really support us and make enough money to live independently. She tried a couple of times,
Sorry,
but
when you say us, were there your siblings as well?
my brother, he came along when I was 9. Sorry,
Okay,
I should have clarified that.
no, that's okay.
Um, but we basically rotated between two sets of aunts and uncles. And eventually, my mother got tired of their interference. There was a cycle. She would beat me, hangers, shoes, books, a dog leash. And my aunt would go to her husband, my uncle, who was the patriarch of the family after my grandmother passed, and he would have a talk with my mother and say, "Look, please don't beat your daughter." And my mother basically just got tired of being told how to raise us and what she could and couldn't do. So she went down to the government services office, asked how to get an apartment, a government subsidized apartment, which we, she was told, well, you're living with family. You don't have as high of a need as someone who's living in a homeless shelter. So she made the decision that we were going to live in a homeless shelter. And that's how I spent the summer after fourth grade. And we did end up getting an apartment in the ghetto. I mean, if you Googled the apartment complex, it was Haverstock Hill, you'll see that there are murders and drug deals. And basically, if you mind your own business, you'll be fine. And I am so sorry, but I have completely lost track of the question.
No, that's okay. It was just delving into your story anyway, so there's assets in there that we can look at. But so you went from the homeless shelter into a unit into the
Oh,
Bronx.
foster care,
Yeah,
foster care.
excuse me.
So, um, my mother actually became infatuated with a man in Alcatraz prison in San Francisco.
Mm,
And she decided that she wanted to move us, my mother, my brother, and me, to San Francisco. And even though we were living in the ghetto and we really didn't see my aunts and uncles, they came three, maybe four times, even though they knew that she was sick and not well and that she was beating us. They didn't come and check on us. She decided that she wanted to move us to San Francisco. And when the second to last week of school, she took us down to the bus station to get on a bus to go to San Francisco. And I just flat out refused. And we were in public, and she couldn't physically force me. I was 12 years old at this age, at that time. And so what happened is the next week was the end of school. And I got off the school bus last day of school. I called my aunt, and my mother, her arm reached over my shoulder and disconnected the call. And my mother then proceeded to take me back into the very back of the apartment in her closet and beat me. She started out with the belt. When my head knocked the dowel rod, the wooden rod that you hang your clothes on in your
yeah,
closet,
yeah,
that's what she started using. And this time, when she took me to the bus station, I did get on the bus, but I ran away. When we got to San Francisco, she called the homeless shelter that she was planning on us staying at, and they were closed for renovations. So we were sleeping on the bus benches in the bus station, in the
mm,
bus terminal. And it was around 2 or 3 in the morning, and I knew that I had to get away because at the end of the beating, my mother looked at me, completely dead serious. She said, "If you get your brother taken away from me, I will kill you."
mm.
And I looked at her and I said, "Would you really kill your own daughter?" And she said, "If I pounded your head into concrete over and over again and you died, it wouldn't be my fault." So that, 2 days later in San Francisco, laying on the benches in that bus station, I knew that I had to get away.
Yeah,
And I was torn because I didn't want to leave my brother with her. He was 4 at the time. But I knew that I couldn't, he was on the same bench as her. And I knew that if I woke him up,
Yeah.
it would probably wake her up and I wouldn't be able to get away. So I slipped upstairs, made a phone call to my best friend's family. She's the one that had encouraged me to go to the counselor to tell what was going on. And her dad actually told me to get out of the bus station, get as far away from my mother as I could. So I got in the car with a man who happened to be driving around San Francisco around 3 a.m. in the morning. And I showed him the bruises on my arms and I explained what was going on. And when we pulled up to a stoplight, he put his hand on my left thigh. And the next stoplight, I got out. I got out of the car and I ran. And there was this really posh hotel that I walked into. And of course, this is or late 80s, maybe early 90s. I'm not sure, but they had a wall of payphones. So I
Hmm.
called my best friend's family again, and the dad actually got on an airplane, flew to San Francisco. They had some family friends in California, in San Francisco. So a woman came and picked me up because I was hiding in the bathroom stall. Like I was sitting on top of the toilet lid
Hmm.
with my feet raised, and absolutely terrified every time the door opened because I thought it was my mother coming to get me, coming to
Hmm.
kill me. So I ended up flying back with my best friend's dad, and CPS was called. And when the social worker told the dad that I couldn't stay with them, that I had to go with the social worker and go be in a girls' home for a few days because the my best friend's family had to go through interviews and home inspections and things like that before they could allow a foster child to live. Um, and the police back in San Francisco, the police woke my mother up and said, "Ma'am, you can't sleep on these benches." And they realized that she had nowhere to go. And Dave, my brother, was taken into custody, and by the end of that week, he was flown back to Houston. So we were placed in a foster home that my best friend's family knew from church. They were nice and wonderful. We only stayed there like a month or two.
Hmm.
And then we went and lived with my best friend's family. And my mother relinquished rights with the expectation that that family was going to adopt both my brother and me and raise the two of us.
Yeah.
Now, that didn't work out. They kept my brother and they got rid of me because they were very upper middle class, like more upper than middle. And I didn't know how to behave in that environment.
Right.
My entire life, I had shared a mattress with
Yeah.
somebody. In the government apartment, I shared a mattress with my brother. In previous apartments, I had shared the mattress with my mother, my brother, and me. Before that, it was my grandmother, mother,
Hmm.
and me.
Hmm.
So, I'm coming from that. And they have a guest room, an entire room decorated and furnished for in case somebody decided that they wanted to spend the night,
Hmm.
like just on the off chance. That like blew my mind that you would have an entire room just on the
I
off chance
guess.
that someone might want to stay. Yeah.
Right. So
And
you're
I
about
was,
13 years old at that stage.
that's correct. And
Okay.
I
And
was
you,
just, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and so at that point, you just couldn't fit in with the family, so they decided to pass you on.
Pretty much. I got sent to go live with my Aunt Rose and Uncle John. And by then, all of the abandonment, the rejection, the emotional issues that I had, um, I I asked to leave. My aunt and uncle had a toddler who was a holy nightmare. He would hit me repeatedly and they wouldn't punish him. And I know that seems so trivial, but I thought that I would be going to another foster home like the one that my brother and I had originally
Yeah.
stayed in.
Hmm.
Very nice, very clean, good people. And I ended up living with a woman who I refuse to name her. The only thing I call her is the bitch from hell,
Right.
TBFH. And in my book, that's what I call her,
Right.
TBFH. And leaving my aunt and uncle's house was the biggest mistake. And yeah,
So
that's how
you
I
made that
ended up in
choice
foster
to
care.
you made that choice to leave your aunt and uncle's place at the
Correct.
age of 13, right? So tell us, I mean, that's a lot to go through as a child. How did your memories work of recollecting like your childhood up until you were that age of 12, 13? Like, do you have vivid memories of things throughout your childhood, like how you rocked up at school after you were physically abused by your mother?
Yes. After a beating, my mother would send me to go take a shower. And it was in the shower that I would scream, that I would cry, that I would pray. I would ask God why he was subjecting me to this. What had I done? Why couldn't I have a normal mother? I also didn't understand how children with two parents survived. I was honestly grateful to have one parent because
Right.
the idea of having two to me, like I was just like, oh my God, how did those poor kids survive having two
So
parents?
you thought what you were experiencing was somewhat normal.
Ish,
Yeah.
normal-ish. One aunt and uncle were very white trash and did not raise their children well. And during the times that my mother and I lived with them, they would scream out orders, go get me a Pepsi, do this, do that. It was always just yelling and um there was a souvenir from an amusement park, a paddle, and my uncle actually drilled holes in it to make it more aerodynamic, to make it hurt worse. So, yes. Um, I didn't really know what functional looked like at
Right.
all. And I actually watched Pretty Woman last night. I love it. I know it's such a chick flick, but I relate to the Julia Roberts character
Right.
um, because, I didn't know how to behave in those nice restaurants or going shopping at Nordstrom or Saks Fifth Avenue, Neiman Marcus, whatever. Um, I wasn't fluent in the language of wealth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. With your upbringing there and, up until sort of 12, 13, did people question, how you were living? Did they sort of investigate? Didn't happen? It's crazy, isn't it?
No. And what makes it worse? So, I didn't mention this, but the week before the end of school, I had gone to the school counselor at my best friend's encouragement and told the counselor what was going on. My mother's trying to move us to San Francisco. A social worker came out to the house, and my mother could put on a great show. She could appear normal when she wanted to.
Hmm.
And what gets me is if that caseworker had done just a little bit of research, she would have seen that in the first grade, CPS had already been alerted. There was already a case history of abuse. That social worker just missed it. If
Yeah.
she had looked through the records, she would have seen that the abuse that I was
Started
talking
very early
about,
on. Hmm.
yes, And, I try to be forgiving and I try to say, okay, they didn't have the technology then that they do now. It was very analog and files. But I mean, if she had just taken 15 minutes to look at
Yeah.
the records, she would have seen it. And I wonder how my life might have been changed by
Mm.
that.
So how did that
Now,
affect your, like, I guess everyone copes with it differently, but at that age, up into your teens, how did it affect how you showed up in your behavior? I mean, were you less confident, sort of cowered in the corner, or were you just more outrageous and hard to control?
so education was my environment
Mm.
where I knew what was expected of me and I excelled, I thrived, and
Okay.
it's where I got my validation. And um, at the end of sixth grade, they picked one student for each subject by grade level. So sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, and all the subjects, English, math, social studies, science, yada, yada, yada. Um, my best friend's family came and picked my mother, brother, and me up to take me to the award ceremony. And I was selected 3 times as
Oh,
student of the year for
yeah.
3 different subjects. So, to if you saw me in the school environment, I was the brown noser. I would always suck up to the teachers, and I would help with grading papers. And I would go to the library every morning. And usually I borrowed a book, and by the next morning I had already finished it. I would stay up and I would read it by lamplight. There was a lamp right outside our apartment building.
Yeah.
Um, if it was a really long book, it might have taken me 2 days.
Mm.
But, and my mother, for all of her craziness and all of the crazy things she did and said, she stopped me one time and just looked me dead in the eyes and said, Adrienne, school is your way out of this life. Getting A's will get you out of this life. And she was
Okay. It's
absolutely
pretty
right.
powerful. Mm.
Yes.
So
Yes.
obviously, I mean, a fairly severe lack of love in your upbringing, and
I
school
actually
gave
was
you.
diagnosed. Oh,
Mm.
I'm sorry.
You're right.
I was actually diagnosed with early onset attachment disorder.
Hmm.
So I don't form attachments to people the way that others do.
Right.
And I mean, I lost my grandmother at 7. I There was no stability in my life.
Mm.
And, I in fact, so when I went into CPS at 13, they did a psychological evaluation on me, and
Yeah.
I include it at the back of my book, at the back of Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines. I include the psychiatric evaluation and the abuse diagram, where there's this like paper doll drawn on, drawn on paper doll, and they marked all the bruises and scratches and everything from the last beating. So they're both included in the book.
Yeah, man. So fast forward, a lot more stories I'm sure we could delve into in that time, which I know you share in the book. Mid 20s, what was the breaking point for you?
Oh God. So in college, I got addicted to cocaine. I
Uh-huh.
loved cocaine.
Uh-huh.
And I did a lot of cocaine in a very short 5-month time span. And
Did you have other drugs and alcohol as well, or was cocaine the sort of thing?
cocaine was primary, and when I was doing cocaine, I didn't need to drink because it didn't really do anything. So, um, but I loved it, and I recognized that if I did not change, I was going to ruin my life. So, in the 11th grade, I received a congressional scholarship to do a 1-year foreign exchange to Germany. It's like an ambassadorship. type program. Um, and in college, I went back to my host family and I attended University of Hamburg. I say attended, I use that term very loosely. I occasionally showed up to class. Like it wasn't a formal foreign exchange
Mm.
program like what I did in the 11th grade. Um, but I took myself out of that situation. I knew no one in Germany who did cocaine, and so I got off of that, but I substituted alcohol.
Mm.
So I graduated college with an international business degree, so I knew a little bit about accounting and finance and marketing and communications, but I couldn't do anything. I had no skills. I didn't have a degree in finance or accounting. I I was just a little, I was just like a blurb. And I graduated August 2001, and then 9/11 happened,
Yeah.
and there were zero international jobs available.
Mm.
So my drinking just got more and more out of control. And I went through men the way that other women go through clothes.
Hmm.
So I was very exploitive. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I used men to pay for my life, to keep a roof over my head, and I would trade up. I would leave one to go for the next better one, and that's something that I'm deeply ashamed of, but it's true. And
Mm.
my alcoholism was just raging, raging. And I I I finally had the same epiphany that I had with cocaine, that if I do not stop drinking, my life is going to be ruined. And I got myself out of Houston, which is where I knew the people. I don't know if you know, but alcoholics surround themselves with other alcoholics because
Yeah.
it normalizes the behavior.
Hmm.
So I decided to become a nanny, and yeah, I moved to Seattle
Right.
and stayed there for 2 years. So, um,
And what age
but
were you
yeah.
then?
24 when I moved
24.
to Seattle. Yes.
So that's when you got clean, got off the alcohol.
Yes and no. I
Yes and
was
no.
sober,
Uh-huh.
and then I met this guy. He was on vacation. He was over from England, so he was British. And in the US, you can stay for 3 months without needing any kind of visa. And I met him at the end of his second month. So we spent 4 weeks just, on dates and getting to know each other. He went home for 2 weeks and then he came back for another 3 months.
Mm.
And about halfway through, I said, you should find yourself some American girl and get married. And, hint, hint. And he's like, well, so do you wanna? And that was my marriage proposal. So,
Yeah.
do you wanna? And I said yes, thinking that, okay, we're getting married for a green card just so that we can keep dating to see. And we were giving a wedding present when we got married. The weekend we got married, we conceived. I got pregnant
Yeah.
with our daughter the weekend
Yeah.
we got married. So,
Yeah.
to be clear, I was not knocked up. That's not why we got married. It was for a green card.
Yeah.
The pregnancy, complete and total surprise. I didn't even think I could have kids because for the past years, I had never used birth control and never even had a pregnancy scare.
Mm.
So,
Right.
and
Wow.
it was having my daughter, and it wasn't immediate. My attachment disorder, I didn't bond with her immediately. She was born in August, and it wasn't until November 8th I woke up hungover on the bathroom floor mat, and I had been telling her dad and his parents were over from England. I had been saying, just take her with you guys. I can't raise her. I can't do this. I'm not capable of it. And on November 8th, I made the decision that I was capable, that I would do whatever it took to raise her and to give her a childhood that I didn't have.
Yep. Yep.
And that's what I did. Now, her dad did pass away when she was 10 years old.
Right.
And that'll be part of book number two.
Right.
But yeah, I got my life together,
Hmm.
and I call her my angel because
Hmm.
she forced me to get my shit together.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesus. Lots to unpack.
Yeah.
Lots to unpack. What I know you talk about 11 traumas, and I don't have time to go into those 11 traumas today. But I want to leave people with some message of inspiration on how you can go about change. Obviously, you have I'd say, a fairly high level of resilience. You seem to be able
Yes.
to go through adversity and bounce back. And some people have that, some people don't. Is that something that you think someone can create, that ability to bounce back after adversity and break through to, new and better things?
Well, I I didn't just bounce back. I wasn't immediately resilient. During my early 20s, I tried to kill myself more times than I can remember. In fact, I was so desperate to stop the pain and to leave this world that I actually did a suicide attempt when I was blackout drunk. Mo People don't realize, but if you take Prozac and you mix it with alcohol, you get a walking, talking, functional blackout. Lights are on, nobody's home. And I was so desperate to just stop the pain. Just I was so hurt. I was so damaged that in my desperation, in a drunken blackout stupor, I downed a bottle of pills. And I woke up the next morning in a hospital bed in a gown, and my aunt's in the doorway, and I'm like, what happened? Why am I here? And she said, Adrienne, you tried to kill yourself. You overdosed on pills. I was like, no, I didn't. I swear I didn't take any pills. I swear I didn't. And she said, yes, you did. They did a toxicology report on you. And later on, when I got back in my car, people don't realize it, but your body intervenes to like there's some sort of internal survival mechanism that kicks
Mm,
in. So I had regurgitated the pills, and there was the residue on the dashboard of my car. And that's when I realized that yes, I had tried to kill myself while I was in a blackout stupor. That's how low I was.
mm.
So, yeah. And the resilience, it's taken years and lots of very small steps.
Yeah.
Um, I asked for my CPS case files, so Children's Protective Services.
Yeah.
I asked for my file when I was 20 years old, and I got this giant letterbox with these two giant stacks of paper, basically everything that had ever been written about me, my psychological evaluations, my monthly reports, the evil foster mother, all of it. And it took me over 3 decades before I could actually go through it. And that's actually how the book started.
Right.
I was so angry at the foster mother at TBFH that I sent emails to lawyers, judges, anybody in CPS that I could get their email address, and I just kept getting told there's nothing you can do. It's too late. No, the statute of limitations. And the only recourse that I really had was to write about it. And I had been told my entire life, so I'm an expert. I went to 13 different schools growing up. I'm an expert at meeting new people and being very social and keeping the conversation always on, about the other person, never about
Mm,
me.
hmm.
And the few times that I did actually open up, I would always hear, you should write a book. You
Yeah,
should write a book.
yeah,
And so 4 years ago, as I was going through those papers and not getting anywhere with the lawyers or anything, I started writing. And
nice.
I just started at the beginning. And, writing it has been hell. It's been absolute hell because
Can imagine.
I've compartmentalized and repressed so much. I put the trauma in a metaphorical box on a metaphorical shelf behind a metaphorical door.
Hmm.
And writing this book has forced me to take each trauma out of the box and to look at it from different perspectives and to understand it and to share the story behind it.
What is that? I mean, you said you are, always able to socialize with people, but, talk about them, get them talking rather than you being open. And I understand, why you'd close all that off. Um, how did you go about being able to overcome the shame that you must feel with it and being so vulnerable about sharing your story? Like, were there any things that you could share there?
How did I overcome the shame? I say for the first half of my life, I was not a good person. And that's true. I exploited men. I was very manipulative, very conniving. It was all about me. And I have spent the second half of my life trying to be a good person. Um, I know that I hurt people and I've reached out and tried to make amends. I don't do AA. I'm not doing the 12 steps or anything. Um, but there are people that I owed an apology, and so I went through that, and yeah, and the shame, it's still with me, and I'm terrified with this book coming out that people are going to judge me, and I know they are. And I've actually just asked my husband, our plan is I'm not going to read any reviews. He will read all the reviews and he will only read the good ones to me.
Filter out
The
the
bad
ones
ones,
that are necessary.
yes.
Probably a good
Yes,
idea.
he's my filter.
Yeah.
Um,
I think, sharing your story so authentically and so openly. And again, I haven't been through level of trauma, but I've interviewed a lot of people that have and spoken to a lot of people that have. And I think you'll get more credit and appreciation for what you're sharing than judgment, truthfully. So I hope you can take that on board because there shouldn't be any judgment in what you've experienced because none of it was your control. Our childhoods and our upbringings is very much out of our control. And if anything, from what you've shared to me in a glimpse today, you took control of that and at 12 made that dash for it. And yes, it didn't happen then either, but then, over the course of your teen years and then your early adult years, you made more choices that you had better control over. And look, a lot of people wouldn't have. A lot of people would have been broken, dead, you know, in lockup or
yeah,
whatever it might be. So
yeah,
I appreciate you writing your book and sharing your story so openly. And I hope it goes well. We can connect again when book two comes out.
absolutely. That'd be great. And thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate you letting me share my story with your audience and with you. So.
It's a pleasure.
Yes.
A lot more I'd love to delve into. Is there any particular directions people can check in with you, reach out? Obviously, we've got the
Sure.
book link in the show notes.
So go to my website,
Yeah.
Unbroken Caldwell, Cald, well, Unbroken Caldwell, and you'll get the prologue in chapter one. But I have included photographs of me growing up as a child. There's even a photograph of me with my hand on my grandmother's casket. I have also included in my CPS case files the documents that were written about me. I've included those. The first psychological evaluation and the abuse diagram are included in the
Mm,
book. There's a second psychological evaluation, and that one, by then, I had learned how to game the system and how to manipulate it.
right.
So I have all of these documents. So people, it's more than just proof. It's the clinical aspect of my firsthand account. And what I would love would be to have my book used in a curriculum for counseling or psychology students focusing on childhood trauma.
Mm,
So that's actually my secondary target audience.
right.
I'd love for it to be used because I do have, I know trauma memoirs. I'm not the first one with a trauma memoir. It's not unique. But having those clinical case files, having that
Yeah.
professional viewpoint on it to go alongside that firsthand account.
Yeah. Makes
I hope it goes somewhere.
makes
So
sense. I'm sure it will, Adrian. So thank you again for coming on and being so open.
it's been truly a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Guys, you can check it out at thehiddenwhite.com with all the show notes and the links there as well. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.